Namaste and welcome back to Waking Up with Mindful Serenity. It's a beautiful day in my part of the world, February morning, but the sun is shining brightly. We see the days are getting longer and it's reflecting off the snow, so you get an even brighter, or a sense of brighter sun, and it's beautiful. I'm going to get out in it today. Before I do that, I wanted to come here and kind of add to the question I answered yesterday. The answer I gave didn't seem to be comprehensive enough for my liking. So I wanted just to add to that, if you will oblige me with that. I answered a question yesterday regarding if life is a projection, or if life circumstances are a projection of what we've got going on inside. And I said, yes, it is, and I truly believe it is. And I alluded, but only briefly, to the idea of entanglement and non-locality. But I didn't go into much detail about it because it was a little woo-woo. But there's another thing I think that happens with life, and I do not think that life is very personal in the sense that it's here for this tiny little me, one of 8 billion on this planet, to serve it and make sure that it has everything it needs to be comfortable. Life has got too many other things going on. Our job, it's not life's job to serve us, it's our job to serve life and to flow with life and enjoy the ride as we go along. But that being said, sometimes life circumstances are tough and things happen and you have suffering loved ones that are constantly in their own unconsciousness, for example, grabbing onto us as if we were life rafts and just trying desperately to get on top so they can breathe, and not realizing at the same time that they're pulling you down with them. And that can be even though you may have all the clarity in the world, after a period of time, that constant being pushed down below the water so someone else can stand up and get a breath of air, can be very suffocating to our sense of purpose in life. So if you have that type of life circumstance on your plate and you say, well, is this a projection of what I got going on inside? And it is, in a sense, because it shows you where you are in your need to put others before yourself. This clump of flesh that we're in, this mind that we have to use, this thing we call our personality, though it is not as significant as the consciousness within us, I don't believe it is. It's still significant enough that we need to take care of it, right? It's still significant enough that we need to look after it. It's like a vehicle that's going to take this consciousness around the planet so it can experience different things, so it can grow and expand through us. And if we don't take care of it, if we don't love it enough, if we don't consider its needs as just as valuable as the needs of the drowning person holding us down, then we will not have the opportunity to embrace this that life has given us to embrace. And our life circumstance will show that, because it will be a projection of what we got going on inside. So when you do have these circumstances that are challenging, be it the person that demanding so much of you unconsciously and holding you down so that you can't get up and take a breath, or if it's the financial things that are showing up in front of you, or if it's the other relationships that are breaking down, or if it's your health, your physical health that's breaking down, or your social status that's breaking down. That is life, not personally, but just because that's just the way the law works, reflecting back to you what you're putting out there. If you're putting these things out there, you're showing, and if they're constantly happening in this cyclical effect and you just can't seem to get out of them, there's something you need to learn inside yourself. It's not out there that you got to look at and judge and say, okay, what's going wrong out there? What can I do out there to make things happen? It's, what can I do in here to change what's happening in here and changing that energy level that I'm putting out, that energy I have. through feeling and emoting and my thought processes and my belief systems. What am I doing that can change for the better so that my life circumstances change? But the changing of the life circumstances are a secondary effect, okay? And there should not be the motivation for doing this inner work. I want to have faith that things will change eventually for this human I call me when I change and I heal a little bit more on the inside. But if my motivation is to have things change, then I'm not really healing on the inside. I'm not taking that seriously enough. And that's what we have to do. So life circumstances could be a projection of us, whether or not we're healed or whether or not we need more healing to do, more learning to do. And I think there's a lot of that is why life circumstances seem to project what we have going on inside. They're telling us where we are in our own healing, in our own learning, in our own expansion as these tiny little consciousness that we are. So we have more work to do. And that work is really effortless action in a sense because it's just a matter of going back and cleansing and allowing the cleansing to take place within us, allowing life to cleanse us as it blows in and blows out, allowing the circumstances to come in and the circumstances to go without clinging or being attached to any of it. Just by asking the question, are my life circumstances a projection of what I got going on inside, may indicate that, yeah, they're not great, those life circumstances, and that I need more healing to do because, once again, I'm focusing outwardly on the life circumstances rather than what's going on inside and what needs to be healed on the inside. Once we're purified, and I know that's a boo-boo word, people hear the word purified and they think, oh gosh, she's one of those new age hippies. Maybe I'm not, I don't know, I don't live with myself anymore. But the act of purifying is simply cleansing the samskaras, those things we're clinging to from inside, those past events that we identify with and hold on to as our identity. We need to let them go, release them, and life will help us with that process by creating those life circumstances outside that are not so favorable, because it helps us to eventually, if we're willing and open and able to see that, we're able to make us go in, and so we can have a look deeply at what's going on inside, and we can, see where we need to heal and make peace with those not so wholesome seeds that are starting to, turn into big weeds in our psyche, and just start working with pulling them out at the roots and those root causes of not only our psychological health and our emotional health and our spiritual health, but it's also like a result of our life circumstance health, my financial health, my social health, where I'm at, what's going on out there is a reflection or a projection of what I got going on in here. Once I am healed, or healing on the journey of healings. I don't know if we ever get truly healed until afterwards. But once we're on the process of healing, or willing to look at those things that we stuffed and stored, and willing to let them go, and willing to allow life to come in and do what it does, as painful as it may be, and willing to sit with it, and willing to experience it, and then eventually willing to appreciate and honor it, then life circumstances will change, I think, for the better. And even if they don't, we will feel better inside. We'll be able to cope with life better. We'll be able to manage better because nothing's sticking inside. Nothing's, constantly being triggered, and there's not that oversensitivity that many of us have to external events that lead to emotional reactions and these, validations of these core beliefs that, life is punishing me, or I'm not worthy enough, or whatever. We have a freedom from all that when we purify. And then, of course, if we go deeper than purification, we'll eventually get to liberation, where we start to see that we are not even these humans, being these little me's that are having the experiences. We are the consciousness that is experiencing it all through these little me's. And that is the great mukta liberation, right? That's freedom. But for now, it's all about healing and wondering why my life sucks so much out there. Why do I have all these challenging things that are constantly pulling me down? Well, yeah, it's a projection of your inside to some degree. Not that you blame yourself for it. Not that you say, oh my God, I must be doing something wrong. That's why my life is like this. Oh, what's wrong with me? I'm always doing things wrong. I got to change the way I think, and add another obligation into your already over-obligated driving mind. Just realize, okay, it's just a tap on the shoulder when you see life circumstances that are unfavorable. Yeah, you might be projecting some of this. Maybe you should have a look inside, and maybe there's something you need to learn about this. If this is the same situation you keep encountering, well, maybe something has to be done. And not just for the sake of this little me that you are, but for the sake of all beings that are entangled in this circumstance that you're living in. Like for the circumstance of the person who is in so much pain and unconsciously holding you down below the water, in attempt to save themselves and stop drowning, as a panicking person will do. You think that if once I say, no, you can't hold me down, I'm going to swim away now so that you learn to swim, because you need to learn to swim. Regardless of how painful it is, you need to learn to swim. And you swim away, you are learning not only for yourself. Your learning is not only benefiting yourself, but it's benefiting that other person. It's giving them the opportunity to lead their own lives instead of always having someone living it for them, or in this case, drowning for them, which is just the unconscious mind at play. So yeah, if your circumstances financially are not so great, just say, what can I learn from this? Yeah, sure, maybe there's practical things you can learn about managing money and saving money, but sometimes, like as was my case, sometimes crap just happens, and you have to get by, and so you have to sell the things you own, and you have to cash in all those investments that you thought you were so good at preparing for the future with, because something unexpected happened. And that happens too. But you don't look at that and say, oh my God, how am I going to change life? I tried to. I spent years trying to change the outer circumstances to fix this one. And it doesn't work. I mean, to some degree it might. You might have some power to do some things. And yes, there's times that we need to do inspired action, and clarity will help us to do the things that need to be done in these circumstances that are projecting not so nicely on the outside. But the biggest thing is to go inward and say, okay, what do I got to learn from this? Or if that's too personal for you and keeps you too attached to all the stuff going on, you can say, what does consciousness need this human to learn through this? Or what does consciousness need for me to do so that I expand enough so it can expand and experience more of life? If you want to take the personal out of it, you can think in terms of that. Or as I do, to remove the person, I always say this human I call me, so that I'm not so identified with the drama going on, with all those external circumstances I'm projecting. I'm not so caught up in them and lost in them. And when I fall back into being the objective observer observing them, or the person or this consciousness that says, this human I call me, rather than me or I, it does help create distance between those experiences that I'm projecting and the person experiencing, or the person, or the, I want to say person, the entity witnessing all of it. So it does change the ball game a little bit. So yeah. So if you found that if you find that you're asking the question, am I projecting all this out there? Yeah. We're all projecting to some degree. We're all co-creators in this existence to some degree. And attention goes. Or energy goes where attention Where attention goes, energy flows. Sorry. And that's happening. So our energy is going. And a lot of times our attention is down on these little things we're projecting. They're so dramatic, and they're so negative, they're so dark, and we get caught up in if we happen to have a lot of life circumstances all at once. Maybe life's saying, okay, I'm giving you a crash course here. You're in the advanced calculus class, so you better smarten up and pay attention and learn, right? Because it's going to get harder as we go. And so you get all these life circumstances coming at you all at once, and it's so overwhelming you don't even know what to do. So the energy just goes down, focusing on this one, this one, this one. You know, as your energy's down and it's getting a little bit more negative, a little bit more feeding that core belief that life is challenging and life is always going to be challenging, and you fail to see the light that's all around you and the beauty that's all around you because you're so focused on these negative circumstances that you are erroneously, and not to be blamed for, just unconsciously projecting out there. So when you have a lot, that's a time to say, okay, life is really giving me a lot, so that I can learn. And there is an old adage, life won't give you more than you can handle, right? Or God won't give you more than you can handle. And I believe that too. Life trusts you enough to give you all these events to deal with and to cope with. And so you're going to learn to trust yourself, and the self with a capital S, to be able to handle these. And one of these ways we handle these is to take that step backwards from them and not get so lost in them by depersonalizing our language even, or our ideation that this is happening to little me. And I'm doing this because my little mind is projecting all this stuff and it's happening back to little me, and it's all about little me, and it's not. It's just life doing what life does. And you're here in this form with this so-called personality and this mind, this great mind that's a wonderful tool. And we're using it to focus down on those little negative life circumstances that we consider problematic as projections of what we got going on inside. The point is, look at those circumstances and say, okay, what does this human have to learn? That's all. So that this consciousness, this objective observer, this greater being within me that's using this body and mind to experience life through, so that it can expand and grow. So just kind of personalize it a bit. Anyway, did I ever ramble again? I did. Well, I hope you have a beautiful day to enjoy out there, and that you make the most of this natural world that we've been blessed with. I know I'm going to. Thank you so much. Namaste.